Hi, welcome to my channel. If you're new, welcome back if you're a subscriber. Today I have a really exciting video, especially for those who love to mood read. I am definitely a mood reader, and I'm really heavily influenced on the seasons and just trying to match my mood and the season and the book and just make it this perfect atmospheric combination. It's so satisfying, especially for me in the winter where it's snowy outside and you're reading a snowy book and you just feel like you're really experiencing the setting along with the book. And so I'm here to recommend some winter horror and thriller novels. So I'm going to be talking to them in order of my favorite to my least favorite. But even though some of them are my least favorites, I do still think some people would really enjoy them, and I'll sort of touch on what you may enjoy in those books even if I didn't personally enjoy them. And then I'm going to be sharing some that are still on my TBR because I still have a few that I haven't read yet. But yeah, I'm really excited for this video and I hope you enjoy it as well. So since these are wintry horror and thriller novels, the premise is often really similar. So there's usually a blizzard trapping people together. There's oftentimes arguing within the group, oftentimes murder, and yeah, it's pretty similar. I will say something that I have noticed is the execution of how the author writes the book just makes a world of difference. It just makes a novel go from kind of mainstream, bland, boring to really elevated and make you just super interested in it and really feel the atmosphere and the tension and everything. So I want to talk about my very favorite winter thriller, or this is definitely up there in my top winter thrillers, and it is a 5-star read. And this is probably no surprise, but it is No Exit by Taylor Adams. I read this about a year ago, and this book was so gripping. I don't think I've ever been more stressed out while reading. This is such an intense book. It's so well written. It really feels like you're reading a movie, and the whole entire time I was just engaged. The whole entire time. And that's something I'm going to touch on with some of these books later kind of down the list. Certain books kind of don't rely as much on the winter setting, and I feel like this just really leaned into the winter setting, but also it was just such a good story as well. So this book is about a girl, and she is going home to try to see her mother. Her mother is on her deathbed, and so she's taking a road trip, but there's a blizzard and she has to pull over at this rest stop. She has no choice. She literally cannot go on, and so she has to pull off to the side of the road and go in this rest stop, and she's with this group of strangers and they're all just waiting out the storm, and it's really stressful, and she's trying to reach her family, and so she goes outside to try to get a cell signal. And as she's calling or trying to call, she sees in a van a child locked in a cage. That's all you need to know about this one. I would highly recommend this one. Again, with all the books I'm talking about, there are trigger warnings for all of these for various different reasons. So please look at the trigger warnings if you're sensitive to certain things, and I would just highly recommend this one though. It's super good. It's so fast paced. It really read like a movie. The next one I want to talk about is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid, and this one is a very divisive book, but I highly recommend it. It is so good, and this one is a horror novel. So all you need to know about this book is it's about a girlfriend and a boyfriend, and they're driving in a car, and it's getting really snowy and hard to see, and the weather conditions are not good, but they're driving to go visit his parents. And the girl is thinking of ending things. So that's literally all you need to know. And I will say for this book, if you haven't heard people talk about this already, I feel like most people know about this book because it's either loved or hated. But you don't know what the heck is going on the whole entire novel. And when I say that, you'd think, oh, maybe it's kind of boring. I don't want to read something where I'm literally just confused until the last sentence. But you do want to read it. I want to persuade you to read this one. So I don't think I've ever felt as unsettled reading a book as this one. So nothing in particular is actually happening action-wise that's making me unsettled. It's just the atmosphere. Something is off, something is wrong, and it's done so well in this book. It is so uncomfortable, and you just want to know what is going on. Something is off. They're doing normal things. They're having conversations, but something's wrong. And you really should not look into this book at all. I would suggest going into it just pretty much blind. And I highly recommend this one. It is disturbing, it has an amazing plot twist, and it is just so eerie. So if you're reading it and you just absolutely cannot handle not knowing what's going on, then just DNF it. But I would seriously give it a try because it's so gripping, it's relatively short, and it's interesting because no exit is super tense because of the action that's happening. It's very action-packed, whereas I'm thinking of ending things is just eerie and not a lot is happening. So they're kind of these contrasting reads. One is definitely more thriller, no exit, and one is definitely more horror. I'm thinking of ending things, but they're both exceptional and I gave them both 5 stars. Let's talk about a recent read, Near the Bone by Christina Henry. This one is fantastic. I highly recommend this one. And it is about a woman who is trapped on a mountain with her abusive husband, and also there is a monster out there. So she is trying to survive a human monster and a creature monster. So this sort of combines human horror as well as a creature feature together, and I think it is so effective because it has both elements. It's terrifying, it is fast-paced, you really just want to keep reading to know what's really going on, and I just highly recommend this one. And I do also want to say in this one the atmosphere is totally highlighted because they are on this island, and I just really felt the atmosphere. It was so palpable, and I actually read this while I was on a walk surrounded by snow for some of it, and it was just so good to be able to read this book in a snowy setting, and I just highly recommend this one. I really can't say enough good things about it. Honestly, I said I rated it 4.5 stars. This may actually be a 5-star read. I have such trouble rating novels sometimes because, you know, what differentiates between a 4.5-star read and a 5-star read? I don't know, sometimes it's just the feeling you get after you read the book, but this one is such a good novel. Also, you just really care for the main character in this novel, and that is so important in making a book good and to really root for the character. So I highly recommend this one. Let's talk about another 4.5-star read, or honestly maybe even 5, and it's The Shuddering by Anhia Ahlborn. I freaking love this one. This one is so good. And this is totally a creature feature horror novel. A group of friends are gathered together in a secluded cabin in Colorado, but a blizzard occurs and it becomes obvious that something is out lurking and watching them in the woods that surround them. By the way, this is also on Kindle Unlimited and it has free audio, so I would highly recommend checking this one out. This one is so good. I don't have enough good things to say about this one. So I haven't read many creature feature books, but this one did it so excellently. So first of all, in this one you really care about the characters and their relationships, and there are a couple couples that you're really shipping throughout this one, at least I personally was. So it had that element, it had sort of what happened with the characters in their past, what their relationship is, and also it just had some intense action horror scenes, which were so fun to read about, and the ending is chilling. The ending is so chilling. I highly recommend this one. It's bloody, it's good, it is so exciting. I never once was bored, and there is a scene in here that is kind of stuck in my brain that really freaked me out. It honestly kind of reminded me of a scene in Signs, and the tension is just so well done in this one. And again, you feel the atmosphere the whole time. All right, so I read The Shuddering for Winterween, and I also read this next one for Winterween as well this year. And this one is Shiver by Allie Reynolds. This is about a group of friends who haven't seen each other in 10 years, since the disappearance of one of their friends. They are invited to a reunion in the French Alps resort, where they spent the peak of their snowboarding careers, and they go up to this resort and they start having an icebreaker to kind of break the ice. I mean, they haven't seen each other in 10 years, but it turns dark and sinister, and it's obvious that someone in their group or someone outside of their group has sinister intentions for them and wants to make them pay. So this one I talked about in my vlog that I'll link above, but I really love the setup for this one. I think people will really love this one. So I really love the setup for it. The middle lulled for me personally, and then the ending was really good, and the last sentence was just chilling and so good. So I rated this one 4 stars. I will say this one is very much more of a thriller, and it doesn't lean into the atmosphere quite as much as the previous ones I talked about. But it still does. It's still there. It's definitely a snowy read. but you learn a lot more in this book about the pasts of the characters, and I felt like it was a little bit too long. But if that doesn't bother you, if you're not looking for something that's gonna really scare you, but you just really want a tense story about pasts that you're trying to figure out and unravel and see how everyone's connected, and also looking for something where everybody seems guilty, like they could have murdered this friend in the past, I would recommend this one for you, and I think a lot of people really will love it. I just personally thought it lulled in the middle, but again, it's a 4-star read. I did enjoy it. I'm glad I read it, and I would recommend it. And I really liked the ending. The ending was so good. So let's move on to Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell, and this one I rated 4 stars. So this is about a couple who go on a romantic little getaway to a cabin up on a mountain, and it's snowy, and they have this terrifying experience that happens there. And so from the very beginning, it is so scary. It just jumps right into being terrifying. So this book I really don't want to say much about. I feel like I don't really need to say much about it. I think you should go into it not knowing much. And this book has some of the most disturbing imagery in it that really stuck with me. It really played on dreams and sleep and scary things happening in dreams and sleep paralysis and stuff like that. So that kind of thing really scares you. I would suggest this one to you. I think this one will really scare you, and I would recommend it if you're looking to be scared. The only reason why I didn't give it a higher rating is because I did find it a bit repetitive. But again, I don't think this will bother many people. I just think I was nitpicking it a little bit. And also there's a lot of explanation about what is actually going on. And for me, sometimes in horror, I like to not really know in detail the explanation. So that's why I didn't give it a higher rating, but I would still really suggest this one because once again, you really feel the atmosphere. There are some scenes that are really scary. I actually had a nightmare about this one, which never happens with me. I don't even think I can remember a time when I've had a nightmare about a scary book or scary movie I've read, and this really gave me a nightmare, and I woke up and I was scared. I felt like I was experiencing something in the book because it has to do with sleeping and dreams and all of that kind of thing. So I recommend this one if you want nightmares. Let's talk about The Shining, and I realized I didn't say this one earlier, but this one is 4.5 stars, and of course this is by Stephen King. So this is about Jack Torrance, and he brings his son and his wife to the Overlook Hotel to be the caretaker for the hotel on the off season. And this is, you know, a huge hotel, and they have it all to themselves, and they are snowed in, and the hotel starts seeming sinister and things are off. Jack starts spiraling a little bit, and Danny, the son, seems to have this special ability. So in this one, the atmosphere is so good. It's everything. It's very, very highlighted in this one. This is maybe an unpopular opinion, but I like this more than the movie. The movie and the book have very different stories, so I don't want to go into too much how they're different because it's a spoiler, but they are very different. They have a very different tone to them and different focuses and a different ending as well. I know that Stephen King's writing can be a little bit slow and boring at certain points, but I do recommend trying to read this one because it really does pay off in my opinion. Overall, I really, really enjoyed this. There were some times where I wanted the writing to kind of pick up a little bit, but for the most part, this one is so good. The atmosphere is just on point. It's a very iconic story, and I would highly recommend it for a snowy book. All right, let's talk about The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley, and I gave this 3.5 stars. So this is about a group of friends reuniting for New Year's to ring in the new year together. This has been a tradition for the past 10 years when they all met in Oxford in college. They choose to go to an isolated estate in the Scottish Highlands, and they get snowed in, and actually 2 days later we find out right in the beginning that someone has been murdered, but we don't know who it is. So if you've read the guest list, it's very similar to the guest list. Same premise, so you're kind of learning about the backstories. Everybody seems like they could be guilty, you don't know who is murdered, and in my opinion the guest list is a lot better, but I will say, now that I've read a bunch of books that have winter settings, I do think this one really played into the setting a lot more than some other ones, which I really did enjoy, and I was interested in all the backstories, so I do recommend this one, and I think it is a pretty good winter thriller. Alright, let's talk about Misery by Stephen King. So another Stephen King book, and this is about Paul Sheldon, who is in a car crash, and he actually wakes up in his biggest fan's home, and she is nursing him back to health or so it seems, but then it's obvious that she is holding him captive and she has sinister intentions. So I like the movie better. So this is opposite of The Shining. I like the movie way better than the book in this one. However, I know a lot of people really, really love this book, so I still want to highly recommend it to you. And this book actually was more disturbing than the movie, in my opinion. There was a scene, I struggle with medical horror. I really do. And there was a scene in here that just made me cringe, and it was a lot. It was more than the movie. If you know, you know. So this really affected me. I will say, please take my advice. Skip the chapters of the book within the book. So the author in the book is writing a book. It's like layers upon layers. So he's writing a book, and he's being forced to write this book by his biggest fan. And there are chapters of the book he's writing, and these chapters are so boring. No words. Like, it doesn't matter what happens in those chapters. I would skip them. So I think that's part of the reason why I really hated this book when I was reading it. I didn't really hate the book, but I hated those chapters so much that it was making the book drag and drag and drag. But the story is really good. There is a lot of tension in this. There is one scene in particular that really, really stands out to me. It is so, so intense. So I would recommend this one. I think you would love it. I think me rating it 3 stars is probably on the lower end of the spectrum. But yeah, I rated it 3 stars. I still would highly recommend it. And it did really lean into the snowy feel because he is definitely trapped in for more factors than one. All right, let's talk about One by One by Ruth Ware. So this one right here, I gave 3 stars. So this is about a group of coworkers who take a trip to a beautiful rustic chalet, but they end up getting snowed in and no one trusts each other. So the main reason why I didn't give this a higher rating is because there is a ton of talk about the tech startup company, and I just really didn't care about that. But I will say I still was interested in the relationships between the coworkers and their pasts and how they all tied together, and I thought the ending of this one was really good. I think if you like Ruth Ware's writing, if you've read her other books and you enjoy them, I think you should give this one a shot. Maybe the company talk won't annoy you like it did to me, but yeah, this one is a 3 star and I wouldn't recommend it quite as much, but I do know some people really, really enjoyed this one. So I would say give it a shot, and if you're not liking it, just DNF it. The time has come for me to maybe make people upset. I'm so sorry if you love this book. I truly am. But Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I did not like this book. It did not work for me. It didn't do it. Okay, so this is about a couple, Adam and Amelia. They went a weekend trip away in Scotland to try to rekindle the flame in their marriage because their marriage is not working. And this trip is basically the last kind of effort to try to save their marriage. But a few things. So Adam has face blindness, so he can't recognize anybody's facial features, not even his wife's. And every anniversary, the couples exchange traditional gifts, but Amelia writes a letter every year that she does not ever share with her husband. So basically someone is lying and someone does not want them to be happily ever after. People really love this book because of the shocking twist and the atmosphere, and I get that, I really do. I think the reason why it just didn't work for me was because I didn't really care about their marriage and their bickering. It was a lot of the couple bickering, and it was a lot about their marriage history, and I just wasn't super interested. I thought the plot was a very good idea, but the execution just didn't grab me, and this one didn't really lean on the snowy atmosphere. It leaned a lot on just this couple being in close quarters, but not so much the snowy atmosphere, if that makes sense. So I would say give this one a shot. You may absolutely love it, but you may absolutely hate it, and this one is very divisive. But I did want to mention it because I know some people absolutely love this one because the twist is shocking. Nobody can really guess the twist. I mean, I don't think anybody could guess the twist because it's so shocking. So yeah, give this one a shot, but it just wasn't for me. Okay, so let's move on to my TBR and some wintry books that are on there that I'm really excited about. So Voices in the Snow by Darcy Coates is probably my top priority winter read right now that I really want to get to, and it's on Kindle Unlimited, which is amazing. So Claire wakes up injured and scared in this gothic home, and there's a stranger there and he said he rescued her. He explains that she was in an accident and he took her home to his house. She desperately wants to leave even though he seems nice enough, but there's a blizzard that has trapped her in. And he says he's living alone, but she seems to hear things outside that make it seem that that's not the case and that something is out there. So this one sounds super good. I really have been wanting to read a Darcy Coates book forever, and I think I'll start with this one because it sounds so good. I'm so excited to read this one. I really hope I love it, and I think you should check this one out too if any of that sounds interesting. I know Darcy Coates is more of a cozy horror author, but also apparently her books really do still have creepy atmospheres, and the whole gothic creepy atmosphere just sounds right up my alley. I just love that, so I'm so excited for this one. Another one I'm really excited about is The Overnight Guest, and this one is by Heather Gudenkauf, and this one actually hasn't come out yet. It's coming out on the 25th, but I'm highly anticipating this one because it sounds so good. So true crime author Wiley has gone to a remote farmhouse to try to get a lot of her writing done in a peaceful space. It's cozy and silent and a great environment for her to get a lot of writing done in. However, decades earlier in the same house, 2 people were murdered in cold blood, and a girl disappeared. The storm worsens though, and she is trapped inside the house and is haunted by the secrets of the house and secrets of her own. But then she discovers a child outside in the snow, and she immediately brings the child in to try to help them, try to figure out what's going on, and it becomes obvious that someone is out there looking for them with sinister intentions. So this one sounds like it could be super fabulous, so I'm really looking forward to this one. The next one that I'm intrigued by is An Unwanted Guest by Shari Lapena. This is about people staying in an isolated, cozy hotel and trying to, just get a great weekend away, some trying to have a romantic couples vacation, but a blizzard cuts off the electricity and one of the guests is dead, and it seems like it was an accident. Then another one turns up dead, and it becomes obvious that someone there is picking people off one by one. People start to panic, and this one sounds really interesting. I know it has some mixed reviews, but I really want to give this one a shot because the premise sounds amazing and I might really like this one. I tried to read The Couple Next Door and I DNF'd it. I just couldn't really get into it, but this one, the atmosphere really has a good setup. I love kind of people being picked off one by one. Locked room mysteries are so good, so I hope that I'll end up liking this one. 5 Total Strangers by Natalie D. Richards is another one on my list, and this is a YA book. Mira is flying home to see her mother because unfortunately there is a death that has happened in her family. There's a canceled layover and she's desperate to make it home, so she ends up catching a ride with some other students that she met on the plane in her previous flight. As they're driving, the weather conditions worsen and she realizes that she's strangers with everybody in the car and she doesn't know their intentions, and it becomes obvious that someone in the car wants to hurt them. The next book I really want to read is The Snow by Maxwell Flint, and this is on Kindle Unlimited. Grady has a tragic work accident and he desperately wants to escape. And so with 2 close friends, he decides to go on vacation for the Christmas holiday and try to relax, unwind, and just have a fun time. They get stuck in a blizzard though, and it becomes a very dangerous situation. In the description it says, because there's something out there besides the cold. Something sinister. So this sounds like it has a lot of potential, and I'm excited because it's on Kindle Unlimited, and I've been loving Kindle Unlimited lately. It's been so nice. So Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh, I believe. I'm not sure how to say this author's last name, but this one is on my radar as well. The Christmas season offers little cheer for Eileen Dunlap, an unassuming yet disturbed young woman trapped between her role as her alcoholic father's caretaker in a home whose squalor is the talk of the neighborhood, and a day job as a secretary at the boys' prison filled with its own horrors. Consumed by resentment and self-loathing, Eileen tempers her dreary days with perverse fantasies and dreams of escaping to the big city. In the meantime, she fills her nights and weekends with shoplifting, stalking a buff prison guard named Rudy, and cleaning up her increasingly deranged father's messes. When the bright, beautiful, and cheery Rebecca St. John, arrives on the scene as the new counselor at the prison, Eileen is enchanted and proves unable to resist what appears at first to be a miraculously budding friendship. But her affection for Rebecca ultimately pulls her into complicity in a crime that surpasses her wildest imaginations. I also would like to read The Sanatorium by Sarah Pearse, and I know that this has mixed reviews, but I still want to give it a try. And if I'm not enjoying it, I'm just gonna DNF it. This year I really want to get better at just DNFing things and not making myself finish things that I'm not enjoying, which is really hard for me because I'm always like, what if the book gets better? But if I'm not enjoying it at 100 pages in, I just probably won't be enjoying the book. So I'm gonna start DNFing more. But this seems to kind of have a similar setting to The Shining. So a former abandoned sanatorium has been renovated into a 5-star hotel. And it has a dark history and is located in the Swiss Alps. Ellen does not want to go there. However, her estranged brother invites her to celebrate his engagement, and so she ends up going. However, she immediately feels on edge at the hotel, and in the morning, her brother's fiance is missing. A storm is closing in, so they're all trapped, and another woman goes missing as well. So this seems like it has a really good setup, and I really hope I like it. These Silent Woods by Kimi Cunningham Grant is another book on my TBR. A father and daughter are living in the remote Appalachian Mountains with no electricity and no connection to the outside world. The father has a lot to hide, so he wants to live in isolation. But his daughter starts beginning to want something more than just this isolated life she's been living. Only 2 people know they exist, one of which is Cooper's friend. And he visits 1 time per year to deliver them food and supplies, but this year he doesn't show up. A stranger now wanders into the woods though, and he is forced to decide if he wants to stay hiding or face his past. So a fun read that I'm interested in is Ski Weekend, and this is actually Fear Street Book 10. So I really enjoyed reading Halloween Party by R.L. Stine, and it was just a fun, nostalgic little read. So this one sounds really fun too, and I'm gonna read the description. Red Porter was a stranger they met on their ski weekend, but Ariel Monroe, Doug Marr, and his girlfriend Shannon Harper were grateful he was there when they set out for home on the icy roads. Thank heaven for Red. He spotted the Hilltop Lodge when they were stranded by the blizzard. He took charge when they stumbled into strange surroundings, scared, tired, and looking for refuge. But can he save them when their refuge becomes a trap? Suddenly, their hosts are acting very sinisterly. Doug's car is gone, the phones are dead, and the house is full of guns. If they steal one, maybe they can escape, until a shot is fired and the real terror begins. So this sounds like a fun setup, and again, just a fun, quick, nostalgic read. So the last 2 books are ones that I might end up trying, but they're a little bit lower on my priority list. And the first one is The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. West Hall, Vermont has always been a town of strange disappearances and old legends. The most mysterious is that of Sarah Harrison Shea, who in 1908 was found dead in the field behind her house, just months after the tragic death of her daughter. Now, in present day, 19-year-old Ruthie lives in Sarah's farmhouse with her mother, Alice, and her younger sister. Alice has always insisted that they live off the grid, a decision that has weighty consequences when Ruthie wakes up one morning to find that Alice has vanished. In her search for clues, she is startled to find a copy of Sarah Harrison Shea's diary hidden beneath the floorboards of her mother's bedroom. As Ruthie gets sucked into the historical mystery, she discovers that she's not the only person looking for someone that they've lost, but she may be the only one who can stop history from repeating itself. So I read The Invited by Jennifer McMahon, and it was definitely a cozy horror novel. It was way more about the atmosphere. So this may be really atmospheric for the winter time. And also for me, I didn't really enjoy The Invited, but this one sounds more interesting to me. So I'm willing to give this one a try. And then the last one is Icebound by Dean Koontz. I've never read a single book by him, and this was all I could find for the description. It says, "The Arctic night is endless. The fear is numbing. Screams freeze in the throat. Death arrives in shades of white. Cold-blooded murder seems right at home. The chill of the grave." I'm really interested in it. It's intriguing with how vague it is. So yeah, those are all of my favorite winter reads, and basically every winter read I've ever read, and then the ones on my TBR. I hope you found some that you're interested in, or that I was able to help you expand your wintry TBR, and I hope you all have a wonderful winter season. Bye.